potentiary and be a party to the treaty negotiations at the appointed time. That's what you need to do. So that shows you their arrogance when you read the full letter. So then you have the British, okay, so after that, all right, after that, I want to say, okay. Then we have the Supreme Law of the Land. Now right here, underneath there, I have a dotted line because this would be someone to take up a presentation after this. And when you get into, by the time the Constitution came, the Sundry Free Moore said, yo, hold on, don't get me confused.
So that
Don't get me confused with that. But then somebody here lately, we're going to make another. What's point to say the same thing? No need to make anything new. We need to enforce that which is.
Yep.
But we want to go out, we're going to make a whole new thing, for what? Nothing changed. You are who you are, they are who they are. But because we don't know who is who and what is what, we feel like we're going to do that and we're going to be the savior of the people. But you can't save yourself. That's why the prophet said you do have enough information to save an entire nation. But what you need to do is go save yourself first. And as soon as people get a little bit of information, they want to go and they're going to save everybody else. Misdirecting, misteaching. We all.
No, they might get ready. They're not coming here.
Me, only 20 years. That might seem like a lot to you, but this is greater, longer than I am. But even with whatever that is, every year you learn something new because you have the building blocks and the proper foundation so that whatever comes your way, you know how to deal with it. Let me give you an example of current. They just nixed out the driver's license instrument. So
Long Beach, but sometime around there, Dutty. Remember when they go around there one time?
I'm so sorry.
I don't never like it. All down their stage, dirty or clean.
And presenting to you an offer of having to do
because the day overcast and it's cold, that's why nobody knows
that. You have a copy of it there? I want to see what it says.
But in the era there, you have all for different spots where you can
see. You understand that what they're doing is, oh shoot, we got
you don't necessarily have,
it's not ID. It's a federal program that we were supposed to be administering, and
that's fine on roadside place where you don't have to go in on the water. I don't want to let
you better make sure you put on them when you
the water look clean and nice?
Not an ID. So now, what they're doing is, and they can't use them. Why? It's a primary.
The sun not come out though.
If it's not an ID, it's not an ID.
Oh really?
It's a driver's license instrument, which it was then, is now, and always will be. All right. So what they're doing now is making an offer to you on some other stuff. It's like a daggone discovery, asking like going for a passport now. And they're going to run that in the mill until they get quartered with that. And why can they do that? Because
it's the same place down there, so they are fishing spot people used to sit down there.
Not enforcing the Constitution and being
them always say somewhere down there so you can't fish
and not your proper person, and you would be able to know exactly by looking at what they're asking you.
I come down there one time and never really catch no about them. Always just say down there so you can't.
Go along with that they're doing now.
Yeah.
So without the proper foundation, you can't recognize these things. And I tell you, in these days, if you can't recognize it, you toast. Because they are toast. And if they're toast, and you believe in them like that, you're toast too. So those people who say, yeah, I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and they just went bankrupt, now what do you say? You better just start being who you are. How about that? How about that? So all of that stuff and all of that slander shows itself to be true or not. And to be true, it is. I want to know what you're a citizen of now. What do you say? Look, Venezuela just 2 days ago. They're no longer taking the United States Federal Reserve notes. Did you know that just came out? So much stuff happening so fast. Because the prophet said, listen to the radio and the news. Did he not? All right? Yeah, they called it the petrodollar because all they're after is the oil. And then they also made a comment. They said, and China's right with them. They're like, you guys are always bullies. They're not saying it like they got a snotty nose and complain and they're going to run home to mama about the fact that they recognize that the U.S. our officers are a bully. They say, no, we finally gonna call you out. What you gonna do? And we don't care what you gonna do, because it doesn't matter. We're just telling the truth. Y'all are all bullies, and whenever you want something doesn't go your way, you start twisting people's arms and doing extortion and all kinds of crazy things like that. And just because the people that are in the land of which you occupying on doesn't know the difference, the rest of us do. We should be shamed that the travel ban that came out, although 200 pages long, still, look at the people who were on it. Everybody was on that particular suit except for Moore. Was it one MST evaluation? Because they're not doing law, you best believe that. They think you should do all of these things and be a citizen of the U.S.A. anyway and a whole bunch of other crap. So, no, that you can't even be a Moore unless you go to an MST event. MSTA was established by the Prophet formally in 1926. 1913 was the Canaanite. I don't know. I think we were Moors long before that. No disrespect to his work, but that's not his work. Because he said, I'm universal. He said, your history is illustrious. He sent you to places. Matter of fact, this is why I haven't moved off this page. He sent you to the 1774 Articles of Association, did he not?
Yes, it says it's never changed.
He says, and since it has the constitutional law, why is he calling it the constitutional law? People, these modern Europeans went to the Continental Congress for assistance. So whatever they told them is what is constitutional law. Period. They weren't constitutional until they came to the Continental Congress, which were Moors, not them. They weren't established yet. Right? So he's telling you to go there because he's so brilliant. That if you went there, you would recognize who is who.
Go ahead, sister.
And then you would know what is what.
Got the peanut butter sandwich.
So let's go forward because, like I said, I already talked about this, I don't need to, but in the meantime, between the leading up to their independence, the British fought the Dutch, I said that, the British fought the French, I said that, the Treaty of Paris in 1763 ended the French, then I spoke to you about the Stamp Act, and I spoke to you about the Boston Tea Party, and I can't even read what that says.
And showed
the 7-Year War. I told you all of this. But I'm going to do one deeper. The Stamp Act, just to prove to you that it was the British that were messing with them. Remember, 1774 is when they went to the Continental Congress, right? But the British were busy fighting the Dutch from 1756 to 1763. Oh, I'm sorry. The French from 1756 to 1673, but they were also fighting the Dutch in that time as well. But here's what happened. After the British finished the fight in 1763, right? They looking to get some revenue. No, seriously, they looking to get some coup back from losing finance for a war. Correct? 7 years of a war. So they stamped them. When they say stamp act, I'm not talking about the stamp you go to the post office again. The Stamp Act of 1765, this is just 2 years after the British finished their war with the French, right? Right? But the English colony, with the French colonies, let me make that clear, with the French colonies, because they're all colonies on your land, but the English are still colonists. They're British subjects still. So they said, we're going to go to them and we're going to get some finance out of them. So, yes.
Right. So just to briefly, you bringing up the Stamp Act, it literally is a violation of the first Bill of Rights because it's a tax on all documentation.
I know. I'm getting ready to read it.
Wow.
But it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I just want to say.
But you're going to recognize, that's why I said this is who's who and what is what. All the things you complain about being done to you is what has been done to them.
Right.
That's what I want you to see and know and be.
I was so
The Stamp Act of 1765 was the the first internal tax levied directly on American colonists by the British government. Are you an American colonist?
No.
Has nothing to do with you.
Of the blood types, but just because I found it out and I read
Is this the British?
share some things, please.
Is this British? This is about American law, right? Had nothing to do with you. The act which imposed a tax on all paper documents in the colonies came at a time when the British Empire was deep in debt from the 7-Year War. And it was told the French. But the English colonies are still their subjects. They fought in that war for them too. All loyal and stuff, right? So, and so the Jewish. And looking to its North American colonies as a revenue source, the colonists argued that only their own representative assemblies could tax them, and they insisted that the act was unconstitutional. Now, what constitution are they talking about? Magna Carta. You heard about the Magna Carta, right?
Yeah.
But you just didn't know what it was and where it belongs, did you?
King John.
Ain't got nothing to do with you. But it has all to do with them. Because when you read the Magna Carta, it's very clear that they're just lords of the fee. They are not the owners of the land. That's it. They don't own the land. How to divvy up the land that belongs to Moors? You know, we would just abandon sometimes our stuff or whatever, or got abandoned from wars, or we just decided we was going to head north or south or east this year and leave our castles or whatever. It's no big deal. Because then you're going to come along, and I know you're traveling that way every year. Just come on in. But at this point, you know, which is, again, back history where we're fighting, we can get those lessons and another level. You got history 1, history 2, and history 3, right? Everybody learns in degrees, right? You need the elementary degree about who you are with all of this. So continuing on, and this right here, this is printed. This is fact. And if you know who you are, you can find the keys you've been looking for.
Yeah, pass the black shirt on my black.
Which is why you're supposed to study.
And then I go
So it says the colonists are, okay, now where are we? Check it out. They insisted that the act was unconstitutional and they resorted to what? Mob violence.
Them say it hot
What's
down
democracy?
Mob
Mob
violence.
violence. They can't live, but that's what it is, right? Okay, mob rule, right. To intimidate stamp collectors. Stamp collectors is equivalent to the IRS agent collectors at this point right here. It's right up in here. That's what they're talking about. Into resigning. All right. Parliament repealed the Stamp Act in 1766, but issued a declaratory act. Now, Parliament is the British Parliament. At the same time, to the British Parliament over the English colonies. Let me make it clear. To reaffirm its authority to pass any colonial legislation that it saw fit. Yep, and do what we want to do with our slaves, is what they were saying. The issues of taxation and representation raised by the Stamp Act strained relations with the colonies to the point that what? 10 years later, the colonies rose up in armed rebellion against the British. Listen, 1766. 65? 10 years? 1775. It fits like a glove. The puzzle pieces are existing. Matter of fact, you can make a puzzle with this stuff if you know how to make puzzles and it'll come out right. Decide whatever shape you want to put it in. Now, the Boston Tea Party was a political protest in Boston, Massachusetts on December 16, 1773, right?
Okay.
Oh yeah, that one I should have done first because I wanted to keep it in. No, 73. You know, it's hard when you think in the 1700s. To you, they all the same, right? But they're not. Because, you know, you could say 1939, 1940, or 2015, 2016. But when you start thinking back in the 70s, in your mind, you're like, I don't know, it's all the same. But it's not. So, the Boston Tea Party, now that was the Stamp Act, right?
Yep.
The Boston Tea Party was a political protest in Boston, Massachusetts on December 16, 1773 to protest British Parliament's tax on tea. You heard of that called the Tea Party. And today they've got an actual party called the Tea Party. See? Yeah. What is it? GOP, Tea Party. Those are the protesters. They are being who they are. Why aren't you? So that was to protest British Parliament's tax on tea. No taxation without representation. It ain't taxing you without representation all day long. They threw the tea imported from the East India Company, because that was another company, into the Boston Harbor. Okay, done with that. Now we understand what the Boston Tea Party was, don't we?
Yeah.
Ain't got nothing to do with you. What were you doing? Chilling, saying, damn, I wish these people would act like they got some sense. Oh, I was like, Paul, I thought
As a
it
matter of
was
fact, they darken their faces so that they look like Moors.
Oh, thank you for reminding me, because I forgot to put that in that sentence. You know you're right, because I got the,
I know.
I was supposed to add that. This is where you heard where they dressed up like a quote, they would say Indian, but it's natives. Because remember, a lot of the ratings back there, they're not going to say Indian. Every now and then you'll see Indian, especially when someone's writing it today, talking about them, they'll just say Indian, just like they'll just call you black or Negro, or they're not sure, so the whole document that you're reading, you might be called Negro, black, colored, you might be called all those things, whichever one fits you best. That's how they write. Or they'll say Muslim and more, and you think they're talking two different things, and they're not. Because, so in some time frames, they don't know what to call you. So, this is where, did you ever hear that? Oh, wait 1 second. This is where they dressed up looking like Moors, and that's how they got close enough, people, to the boat to get to the tea. You hear me? That's a fact. Look it up. I just forgot to add that. Thanks for reminding me. Your hand is up. What's up, Mizraim?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add on when you was talking about the different brand names.
Yeah.
That when we went to the plantation, the European Pilgrim ladies specifically say that they don't like to be called Indians, they like to be called Native Americans. And I wanted to point out too that the Stamp Act is the reason for the Fourth Amendment.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes. He's correct. A lot of these stuff, the stuff that you see that's going on here, let me tell you, when the Constitution was established, it put an end. That's what it's for. To put an end to all of, you can read this history and say, oh, that's why that's in the Constitution. That's why that's in the Constitution. To protect that. Yeah, and it's so funny because they were treated that way and then turn around and treat others that way. That's the arrogance. Yes.
Mike.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
They have this 1977 Native American Act. It was the Europeans added the word native to American. So that person you was talking about saying they don't want to be called Indians, they want to be called Native Americans. The Europeans created the term Native American. It's redundant. You don't have to say Native American.
That's right.
And American is Native. So she's accepting the term American.
Right.
What's Donald Trump? Indigenous.
Take back that which belongs to us. So when you hear Native American, oh, I don't want to be Native American. No, you're native to the land, so you're the Native American. If you look at President Clinton's, although it's an executive order, which means it's not law, it's only for those who are listening to it, but as is, what's the word, not pursuant to, Whatever you pursuant to. Because you stand autonomous and you are the law. Everything else is affirms the law. So as is affirmed in the executive order on the implementation of human rights, he clearly says in it, he says, the Americans, he distinguishes Federal Reserve Indians from the Native American. It's right there. They're two different people. It's right there. But we also went through that phase. We're gonna be an Indian. We want to be everything except for who we are, and we want to enforce everything except for that which we are supposed to, which is the law of our land.
Yep.
But now we're being forced to make some changes.
Ain't that right?
So now, and there's no other way. Believe me, everything else has been tried, and you found it's not true. You know how they say tried and true? Tried and not true. How about that? What happens with that? So I wanted to show you, just before we move, I'm sorry. Yeah, all right, so I just wanted to show you this. These are the companies. I'm just proving to you these are companies, all right? Now, Sister Annie called me up, thanks to her. I actually did the visual on this, because that's the part I do. She did the research. I said, great, we're going to have to do this. This is Great Britain companies on Moroccan American soil. Yeah. Great Britain companies. Not talking about, now, want you to understand, I don't have a pointer here, but if you look on the left-hand side, you see it says Charter of Acadia, 1603, right? That's not Great Britain. That's Henry IV. That means that's a French colony. So that's why that's over here, and I just put it over here, and it comes down to what we know as Maine, which is the Great Charter of Maine, right? All right, you see that? Huh? You see it? All right, so that's there because it's a kind of a chronology, because the Great Britain's first company is the Virginia Company in 1609, right? Right? What came out of the Virginia Company? Over on the left, you got the Charter of New England, right? All the way over on the right, you got the Carolina Company, right? Out of Carolina came Georgia. All 13 of them are in here. These are all companies. They are not the land. You know they're not the land because this is the Moroccan land. You know this is Morocco, correct? Correct? Yeah. So how can it be New Jersey? How can it be Delaware?
Because those are ships.
Because those are just, they came on ships. They came on ships. And when they got off, they named their companies these things. I'm proving it to you. And then they became a union with all 13 of them. Right? Didn't I just show you that they styled themselves as a union called the United States of America?
Yeah.
Didn't they first start off with only 2, 3, or 4? Which was New England? Or under the Virginia Company, New England? Didn't they grow into 12 by the time 1774 came? Didn't they grow into the 13, one more, by the time 1777 came? 13 colonies. They are companies. The independence was to win for them to be able to be independent with their companies. That's why slavery never stopped. In terms of human bondage, this wasn't about that. It wasn't about it. What do you have here? Huh?
All of us weren't slaves.
We weren't the slaves at all. Thank you. So now, all 13 are here. So you got Virginia, you got New England. Virginia created New England and Carolina Company. Out of the Carolina came Georgia, 1, 2. And then out of New England straight, they made Charter of the Dutch West Indies. Remember I told you about they overthrew the tea because, okay. What came out of the Dutch West Indies is, what is that? Massachusetts Bay and Maryland. What came out of Maryland is Pennsylvania and Delaware. What came out of, okay, now what this is right here is an absorption of all of this This is Maine. This is French colony right here. But he sold it to Mason and George. Patented it. And Mason and George in 39? And then it got all absorbed.
1622.
22, thank you. Right here, Plymouth, you know Plymouth Rock. It was dissolved. It was absolutely dissolved. And then this right here, which is the New Haven one. New Hampshire?
That's Grant, New Hampshire Company,
All right.
1629.
All right. All it is got absorbed back to who? Massachusetts back. That's what these two are. The great grant of province of Maine, because this was all Maine that was covering. And the grant, notice it says grant. Nobody owns the land. Nobody owns the land. It can't be what? It can't be sold, and it can't be transferred. So they come up with words like grants and patents. See, you know Henry IV, who put the French over, he's a fool. They put the French colonies. But see, French colonies came, British colonies had their English, the modern European side, everybody stopped fighting and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Islam.
On your land. On your land. So they are companies, and so I did another visual to do the visualize a little bit. We all up in here, including Canaan land. It's North America. Alright? This isn't actual, but the little red stars is all the Aboriginal indigenous people from the north to the south. Right? And then, I got a couple blue stars. It should be more than that. But back here, let's just say they're the Dutch and the French and whatever. You got to understand, they're just still on your land. They're on your land. So, a state is what? The proper definition, a group of people occupying a fixed territorial land. Right? Such as were the United England colonies. They were occupying the territorial land themselves. They've always been occupied. Oh, they're occupying the land. If you're standing on it, you're occupying it. You're taking space, ain't you?
Islam.
All right. So they're later referred to as the Union States, styled as the what? United States of America. How much do people have to do to tell you that the United States of America is a corporation, a company? The recent travel ban proved it. They nixed his stuff because they know from the rest of the world, even though you don't, that what the law is and what he can, or anybody in that position, who is the president with executive powers only, meaning they can't make no law up in this piece. They can't make law. They can't make law. But people who don't know, they make what they call law, which is why we taught as a statute or ordinance policy that's not law.
For corporations only.
And they were for corporations only. They were for their members / citizens, because citizen and member is the same thing, which is why people tell you you're not a citizen. I qualify because as far as the broad spectrum of citizenship would go, you're a national.
Islam.
Because you want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, we're not a citizen. You're not a citizen of the United States of America. That's what you should ought to be saying.
Right.
You want to talk crap about, I'm not a citizen. What? And it really comes from someone who's attached to a city. Sit up, sit, count, right? So if you cross the world, somebody said, well, what's your citizenship? They don't know what you're going to say.
National.
And you say, I'm a national. They got you. So talk that. And recognize who's on your land and what the law of the land is. How about enforcing that? So that you're not molested. So, and then when you look up United States, it has several meanings. It could be a term that has several meanings. It may be merely the name of a sovereign occupying a position analogous to that of other sovereigns. Because you're united.
Islam.
You have to know, you really have to know, you have to what we call qualify what's being said.
Yes.
It could be analogous to that of other sovereigns in a family of nations. That's why when we talk about Oh, it's the Cherokee Nation. It's the Washita Nation. It's the so-and-so nation. No, we're all family in the same daggone nation. There's no such thing as that.
Different districts.
We're just different family, if you will, if I can explain it. Yeah. The Hills, the Johnsons, what you been calling yourself. Oh, that's the family of Johnsons over there. Oh, that's the family of the Hills over there. Oh, that's the Jackson family. Jackson family. Right? You understand? That's what it is. Or it may be, it just may be, a collective name of the states which are united by and under the Constitution. All right, then. We'll move on. Visual on that. Now, I'm not reading it. I put this here so you can see that we got this information straight out of their documents of American history. Yes? Oh, I want you to take notice of something. I want you to take close notice of something here. What does that say? Listen. The federal state constitutions, colonial charters, and other organic laws of the states, the territories, and the colonies. Now, forming.
Now we're here forming the United States of America. So
Go ahead, Tito.
It's like an article.
It's right there. So I put the paper up. I put the actual, and the only thing that I did on this, because I'm not going to read the whole stuff, just the intro on the first thing we talked about. That you know, you got to have a test, right? You got to know. The Articles of Confederation from 1643 to 1774. The Articles of Confederation between the plantations. Y'all gonna love this. I know why the prophet said study. You will free yourself. The plantations under the government of the Massachusetts. The plantations. They're plantations. Did you know the colonists were plantations? Oh wow. Under the government of New Plymouth, the plantations under the government of Connecticut, and the government of New Haven, with the plantations in combination thereof. They just identified who the parties are, and they're all plantations. And those are the modern Europeans. They're admitting it themselves. They didn't have no reason not to at the time. So it says, whereas, now I left this, I scanned it right out of the records. You know, sometimes I like to type it over, but there's so many people that think they want credence and, you know, prove this. So a lot of this is straight out of the actual record. And I have the document right here. You know what I'm saying? You can get it too if you want to print it down.
Go ahead, Tito.
So it says, now look at this intro. This is them in 1643 identifying themselves. Do you hear me? Whereas we all came into these parts of America with one and the same end and aim, namely to advance the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ. They're Christians, you know. And to enjoy the liberties of the gospel in purity with peace. And whereas in our settling by a wise providence of God, we are further dispersed upon the sea coast, and rivers than what was first intended. They got a little bit deeper in the woods than what they wanted to and got left here. Check this out, y'all. So that we cannot, according to our desire, with convenience communicate in one government and jurisdiction, right? And whereas we live encompassed with people of several nations and strange languages, which hereafter may prove injurious to us or our posterity.
We scared.
Are y'all hearing this? So don't let them tell you that the appellation you chose don't sound, they can't pronounce it. They never could. All right? And, okay, maybe prove interest to us and our posterity. And for as much as the natives have formerly, see, they said natives, didn't they? Have formerly committed, so that means they're not the natives, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Woo-woo, they're not the natives. Oh my goodness. That I have formerly committed sundry, that means of various, insolence and outrages upon several plantations of the English. plantations of the English and have of late combined themselves against us. And seeing by reason of those sad distractions that are going down in England, which they have heard of, and by which they know, see, they heard of it because they're not there, they just heard, right? Which they know we are hindered from that humble way of seeking advice or reaping these comfortable fruits of protection, which at other times we might well expect. We therefore do conceive in our bounden duty, without delay, to enter into a present consociation amongst ourselves for mutual help and strengthen all our future concernments, that as in nation and in religion, so in other respects, we be and continue one according to the tenure and true meaning of the ensuing articles. Wherefore, it is fully agreed and concluded by and between the parties or jurisdictions above named, and they jointly and severally do by these presents agree and conclude that they all be and henceforth be called by the name of the United Colonies of New England.
That's what it said.
So I said that, but now I just proved it to you. So don't say, they don't know what they're talking about. They stayed like that for like 10 years, 1643, 1774, so they got fed up. Yes.
Islam, there's a lot of discussion online with regard to the term, or the use of the term, don't go, come back.
He ain't going nowhere.
You want to take that mic?
Here.
Okay, Aboriginal, and whether or not...
He just explained it.
I know you did, but there's some
Right.
some that beg to differ as to his meaning and whether or not it's valid, because they feel that it's just the same Native American, and also some other things. I'll let Brother Abdullah read.
I'm going to let him answer that, but I
Comments.
just want to clear something. So they're saying that it's the same as saying Native American.
Well,
And what's
someone was comparing. There's a lot of discussion. I don't know if everybody's paying attention to that. Here's the problem. There's so much discussion going on about that. I don't know if they're getting to get everything else, because it's back and forth about that. So I'd like to get...
It happens in those chats.
Yeah.
That's great.
So...
All right, so let me just do this so I can move on.
Okay.
I'm going to let you answer it right now. I just want to show proof to some people when you hear us say that March is the first month of the year.
Islam.
And it's, the new year, and if you going out there celebrating January as New Year, I'm going to prove to you that March is the first year, because they wrote it down when they signed this, 1643, look what it says. In testimony whereof, the General Court of the Massachusetts, by their secretary, and the commissioners for Connecticut and New Haven, have subscribed these present articles of this 19th of the 3rd month, commonly called May. What's the 3rd month that you know of?
March.
So if May's the 3rd month, then March must be the 1st.
Islam.
Because the new year is March.
Islam.
So right here when they signed this. So you think Morris is crazy because they said that the new year is in March. Study and show yourself approved and be free. Now let's go back to Abdullah explaining to those out there who having a problem. Do you think you know how to knock out this Aboriginal thing? Yeah. Good, I might have to be a juice fight instead. A juice fight.
We have the word descendant. I'm going to take it from this angle now, since the other part they didn't copy. We have descendant, and the D, which is the prefix, means from. All right, sin means come from. So let's put Aboriginal. So we have Aboriginal means away and from.
Islam.
So you have from the original. Descendant. All right? Coming from the original. So we say we are Aboriginal, meaning we're from the original inhabitants of the land thousands of years ago. We've inhabited this land. All right? It's 2018. So we're from the original inhabitants. We can trace our lineage from the original inhabitants of the land.
Islam.
Hence, we are aboriginal. People they're still locked into the prefix in aboriginal means not in aboriginal. In abnormal, it means not.
Islam. Say
It means
that.
not. Abnormal means not normal. Prefixes can function as a negation, but not in all cases. So when you're seeing, when they see ab, they're automatically thinking not. Well, once again, what does ab mean in abduct? All right, abduct. You say ab means not in abduct, no problem.
Not duction.
So that means I'm not taking her. If you're saying ab means not, that means I'm not taking her. It means not lead. Means what? Act up. Lead away.
Islam.
If you're saying ab means not, in all cases,
Just prove one.
don't use the word abducted. Because if I say, well, abductor, but I can't say that word abductor because it doesn't mean take. If you say it means not, you say ab means not, then abduct is the wrong word to use. Because I'm not going to take her. All right? So I'm just showing you ab does not mean not in all words.
Yes.
That's still fixed on that.
Islam.
I just gave you an example in abduct. Ab does not mean not in abduct.
You still want to say and let them know that
I'll
even
get
in
Hold
the
on, take the
English
mic behind
language,
you. Teach a song.
no, you just want to let them know.
Hit the buttons aside.
You just want to let them know that in the English language there are always exceptions to every rule.
Well,
To these rules in English, there are exceptions to the rules.
well, this is Latin. Because ab is Latin. This is actually Latin.
It does.
It's Latin. This is ab is Latin.
Yes.
Abduct,
But you
abnormal.
just showed them an exception to the
Right, because it
rule
doesn't.
of ab.
Yes, it doesn't mean it's not an
every
indication
case.
in all words. Now, so when I also read that ab, then I'm saying that in the case of Native American. Well, once again, an American is native to the land, so it's being redundant when you say Native American. The Europeans constructed the term Native American and placed it in Native. So when you say you're Native American, that the one you talk to, that puts you under the jurisdiction. Once again, the Native American Act in 1977. All right, so that puts you into that jurisdiction because the Europeans created the term Native American, and so what they've done was, in the general public, got people thinking that an American is a United States citizen, and a Native American one who lives on reservations. That's a false construct. An American is Aboriginal, Native, and indigenous to the land. Also, I got you. There's also people will say indigenous. Don't use indigenous because that means not. No, indigenous. Once again, the gen, which is the root word, coming from the Greek, which means source or origin, as in Genesis, generation. All right. So, and to be indigenous is natural, like a plant that's indigenous to this land, or a plant that's indigenous somewhere else, which means what? That's the natural inhabitants. That's the natural environment
From which it generates.
So, exactly. So, indigenous refers to natural. All right? The source, so origin. All right? Go ahead, Todd.
Yes.
Did I clear that? Hopefully that helped.
The European colonists via the Circle Church chancel, which is the crown, was what Roz was talking about, would transfer the crown from King John under the Magna Carta when they were rebelling. The barons were rebelling, and so the chancel church as you all know as scholars, the Knights Templars were more or less like guards for the Constantinians, in the Christian order. And so the debate with the Europeans continues even to this day, and this is where you have the operations of the Circle Church actually operating the powers of the crown and hiding in plain view, which is the bankers and the lawyers and esquires, which is why they removed original article of amendment, the nobility clause from the Constitution, and won't show it to the people, etc. And so, again, just as a comment, I'm appreciating where Roz is showing these connections because what this does, this removes any dispute, particularly for any COINTELPRO operatives who know that the masses don't get this information. So what you're doing is simply giving them vignettes of lock-in puzzle history, which cannot be denied. Because the Europeans themselves are telling you. But the other issue is the Europeans created the Native Americans so that Europeans could, because they created that, they could interject themselves and make land claims. That's why when you go all around the country to the powwows, they're usually Europeans putting braids in, put beer in their hair, and do some beads and say they're Cherokee.
I gotta say,
Real quick, I'm going to add to that. The Dawes Manual. The Dawes Manual, 1820s. Senator Dawes, he's right on that. So span. Dawes Manual.
Yes.
So when it's called the $5 Indian. Under Senator Dawes. That was in the 1830s.
Yeah.
And so he's right where Europeans laid claim because they Europeans. Our Europeans were paying 5 notes to be put on the Dawes Manual.
Yes.
All right, we call it Dawes Rules. It's called the Dawes Rule.
Yeah.
All right, and that was put in legislation. That legislation was introduced by Senator Dawes, D-A-W-E-S.
Yeah.
All right, in the 1830s.
Yeah.
So that is when Europeans are making land claims, and the Native American term ties into the Europeans making land claims, going back to the Dawes Rules of 1830. Absolutely right.
And one more interjection, and this is why it's dangerous.
There you go.
And thank you, Ross, too, because this is why it's dangerous for Asiatics when they begin to become awake, think they're going to get a benefit by claiming to be Indians,
Yes.
and they come under the Europeans' jurisdiction, under the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
that's right.
And remember Dooley, the brother who played in 300, who used to call us all the time, he was a chieftain for... Yeah. All right, and that's why they're knocking out all their treaties and claiming their Moorish nationality. I think they killed him. It's fine. Peace.
Interesting. I was going to say, first of all, I want to say I trust that the people who were unclear about ad are clear now. And I do know one thing that, as mentioned with Sister Sandra, well, of course, you got them all, she's Abdullah, and you also as a teacher, and myself and others, that there's always exceptions in, the rules. Like, for instance, out there in Facebook that are listening, I before E except after C, right?
Oh, but how you spell it?
Except after C. I before E except after C. Yeah, I before E. It's always I before the E unless it comes after a C, like you receive. I hope you receive this information. Then it would be R-E-C-E-I instead of I-E.
And believe is I-E.
And believe is I-E.
Aren't we talking about elementary grammatical?
This is elementary stuff.
Yeah.
And that's basic. That's basic. They stop educating our children in the elementary level. So some of the things that we're talking about is definitely foundational, and we don't have it. Islam. Do you have your hand up over here?
Yeah.
Can you hand him the microphone? It's misery.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. If you don't mind, since y'all are touching on this subject of grammar,
Yes.
and the rules of grammar, if you don't mind touching for those who slander and say, "Oh, Moors are crazy for teaching the right to travel."
Yeah.
You have to have a license. All of this.
And the delegation of authority.
How important is it if we were to all pull our road travel out and put it on the table next to a license, isn't it true that grammatically the road travel, the nationality card, grammatically trumps the matrix or the falsehood of the driver's license because it's not grammatically correct?
Islam.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Is that fact?
Exactly.
I like that. And it's interesting you said that.
Go ahead.
That was a
Because
good
that could
one.
never be you or identify you.
Right.
If we're talking grammar, jurisdiction, and things like that, you would have to first start with the proper spelling of what we're even talking about.
Yes.
Substance versus surface.
Go ahead.
Islam.
Yeah. Law, which is substance, versus legality, which is the form, as well. The only
Right
difference
on,
between
Miss
what is
Lawrence.
lawful and what is legal. That was great. I like that. That was great. So, all right. So we got some heavy hitters in the house tonight. You're not gonna get past it tonight. Not tonight, Facebookers. Not tonight. And I'm gonna talk about.
Hey, all right. I think that's a lot to take in, and I think we would want to uh, speak on areas of all what we have heard up to this point. I know that we got a little bit of um, uh, technical issues at the beginning, but I think we got enough information to comprehend the title of Rosemary V. Bay presentation in terms of knowing who is who and what is what and what we need to do in terms of taking our place back on our proper throne. So I'm going to open up the floor to everyone. So give me 1 second here. Okay. Okay, sorry everyone. Just having some. I'm the one that's having the technical issues here. If you all anyone has a question, please just utilize the reaction button at the bottom to raise your hand, and I'll just unmute you. Thank you.
Good day.
Hey, good day, Noble.
I never got the class. Were we having class today? It was kind of strange today. I never got really the message. My phone muted out for a good long while. I just wanted to know if Justice Mario was on.
Noble Mario is not here right now.
Okay.
Yeah, in today's class is we're just doing playing back a movie from RV Bay in terms of the title is Know Who is Who and What is What, and to take your rightful place. And I'll post that video on the chat so everybody can clearly everyone clearly knows. You have any questions in terms of any comments in terms of the video? Noble? Okay.
Grand Risings. Can you hear me?
Grand Rising, Paulina?
Yes. Obviously, I had a lot of technical issues my end as well. The video kept going off and that, so I couldn't really get the understanding of what was really being said. You know, I know a lot of people managed in the chat, they got the understanding what it was all about, but I don't want to take up too much time of those who's understood it more. But you said you're going to post it in the chat so I can be able to pick it up and then I can listen to it more thoroughly.
Yeah, it is in the chat right now.
Thank you. Yes, because as I said, there's a few parts I listened to and I didn't get it, so I need to listen to the whole thing thoroughly, so I can understand it more.
Okay.
I yield.
Okay, thank you for that. So, in parts of the video, it was speaking about how the Europeans came. They came as companies. Initially as the Virginia Company, um, New England, um, touched on areas of Maine, the Charter of Maine, and they expanded into the 13 colonies as companies. And as you can see, they established they're moving as the United States. So all what they're doing is moving on the identification as corporations, and we're to comprehend that they are just corporations without being native to the land. They may have constructed the term Native Americans, but they're not true. They're not the true Americans to the land of America and Metsum, here where we are. So that this video is explaining to us that we have to know who we are and take our place as the true Americans to the land, and know who they are and who they are not. And Donald Trump and others may claim that they're Americans, but they're not. They're not the true aboriginals to the land. So we got some amazing. This video is explaining to us some true facts about who we are. So any comments from anyone else? Hey, David P. You can unmute yourself.
Greetings, nobles. I actually found the video pretty informative. Generally, most videos that I've watched with what do you call it? More of the round table. So Ras Marabé, Abdullah Mozi Bey, Talib Mozi Bey, and Taj Tariq Bey are usually very interesting, and they're usually on point. But I found it was interesting. The one of the nobles was making the comment about the difference between the nationality card and the license, where if you have an overstanding of grammar and etymology, then you would overstand the differences between one being fake and not giving you any appearance of one misrepresenting you, and then the other one basically is the one that basically qualifies you for the say the unalienable or inalienable rights and so on.
Yes.
And from that perspective, so I found those particular subtleties, but I was actually looking for some of the acts that were mentioned, like the Native American Act, but it's not immediately. I realized that they actually haven't posted it on the net. I have to look around and see where I can actually find it, right? So that I can have a record of it.
Yes.
Because I find that a lot of the information that they drop is very subtle. You have to be listening to. You have to really be listening to what they're saying, to realize what nuggets they're dropping, and they drop a lot of crucial nuggets in that particular presentation. So, because I seen somebody comment as to whether or not this was a general class or a beginner class, but this particular class, if you were listening, you would realize though that it was beginner, it was intermediate, and it was advanced all in one. But was he saying, he who has ears to hear, let him hear? So for certain people, they may or may not have been hearing what was being said because a lot of information was dropped. It was fairly information dense, and usually it will take a fair amount of time to unpack from what I understand, but it was informative, so excellent so far. But I thought that particular information as it related to the etymology and the difference, the need to be able to read and comprehend, even though the word reading usually implies comprehension. But a lot of people don't know that reading and comprehension is implied. But just to state it, to be able to read and comprehend information in terms of becoming erudite is important, because if you don't know what is being said to you, you don't know how to plan a motion of attack and how to basically go about taking these people apart, you know, from that perspective. In fact, I'll end with this because it was this isn't directly related to this particular video, but I was watching something where they were talking about the fact that they had banned what we call marijuana years ago because it was a recreational drug. And something told me, look at what recreational means. And so on Edamon online, I looked up recreational. And recreational is recreation al, and al means pertaining to. So recreational means pertaining to recreation. But recreation means to rejuvenate or to cure a person. All right. Because means to anew or renew. Creation means to bring into being. So you're renewing or bringing back into being. And al is pertaining to. So pertaining to the recreation and bringing back into your correct status from a physical perspective. So what they're basically saying to you, that marijuana as a recreational drug is a drug that cures you of all your ailments. But we think recreation means going outside and exercising, or recreation means going and playing dominoes or relaxing with your friends. But they haven't lied to you. It's just that you can't read. I yield the floor.
Noble David P., you mentioned the area of the travel card versus the driver's license. And we're to know proper grammar or know the facts of knowing that the driver's license is an exhibit of the fraud that's being utilized on us, where we have made a proclamation in the card of our indigenous identity, established in our rights, in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, speaking about our origin, our nationality, our self-determination in that card. And if we, similar to what you're saying in terms of reading and comprehension, knowing the difference in the two and making a presentment in the area of our identity being challenged. That driver's license is an exhibit of the fraud that's being put up on us, and we're to be exercising our rights through the travel card of fact. So I was kind of drawn in by that area of presentation in the video regarding the travel card versus the driver's license. I thank you, Noble David P. for that. Any other areas of the video that anyone cited that was important to them? How about the Aboriginal? They mentioned the word Aboriginal, ab, and original. In terms of ab, the prefix of the word ab does not necessarily mean not, but it means now. From Abdul, he mentioned it meaning now from the original inhabitants. Anybody would like to touch on that? The word Aboriginal. Okay. Ab. Someone, David P. posted ab, forming element, meaning away from off, down, denoting disjunction, separation, departure, from Latin ab, preposition, off, away from, in reference to space or distance, also of time, off, away, speaks much about being off of away. Okay. We have Karina Bay. Karina Bay. You have the floor. Unmute yourself. Karina Bay. Yeah. Good day.
Regarding the video, I think what set me running for my Black's Law Dictionary and my etymology book was when she explained, when you emigrate, when you become, it's begin with an E, and the other one where it belongs with a, if you emigrate, you'll always be the immigrant, and you'll always be that way. So that was kind of hands down for me. That means you, as far as I'm concerned, it's like, who are you then? Who are you? Because they've emigrated, so they can never be over you because they've emigrated. They're in the country, in your land, on your land. I yield.
That's right. They can never be the true they can never be the true Native Americans, not the term Native Americans, but the indigenous people to the land. They can never be because they're immigrants from a faraway land onto our land.
Yes, but that's even if they're colonists, even in Britain they're colonists as well, because they never they emigrated here, they colonized this country because this belonged to Europa and the brutes.
They don't have a land.
Pardon?
You're saying they don't have a land?
No, I don't think so. They have the Caucasus Mountains, yes, and Slavia.
Yes.
And that's it. That's it.
Hey, thank you for that. Hey. Dina, you have the floor.
Yes. Greetings, everyone. I'm just making a contribution to what the matriarch just said, but it seems as if they're on a trajectory, or they have like a strategic desire to just occupy the entire earth and remove us. I mean that's what the pandemic was about. You know, how sustaining can that ever be? Because they can't really exist without us. At least they want to think that they can.
I think I would say that they want to have the power and control over us in by color of law. We when we're looking back at the driver's license versus the travel card, they wanted to give us give us identification from their perspective, color of law. And the travel card is a proclamation from the living man. And unless the living man, woman exercise their rights, rise up with our strategic plan, um, so that we're not to be dominated, but we're to exercise our willpower for life.
Right. Rather than allowing them to continue on with their agenda.
Yeah, we have our agenda, we have our plans, don't we, for this life, for our life? And
Right.
we're to, and earlier on the video, it speaks about them unionizing, coming together. What are we supposed to do?
Do the same to counteract what they're doing.
Yeah,
You know,
come
okay,
together like what we're doing right now. We are coming together.
right. So, question, Noble, as far as with I know that we are all, either have or in the motion or plan to become nationalized. Okay, this is going to kind of turn things a little left a little bit. But as far as with uh, the judge over the World Court, Mr. Henderson, um, does nationalizing and indexing, is there a difference to a certain degree? Because it seems as if I've been listening to him quite a bit, and it seems as if he's basically saying that, well, if you're not indexed and we don't have your information, and and things move into another financial um, uh, program or another financial system, because I guess he wants to shut down their system and start up a new financial banking system,
Yes.
and X them out of it. So, if that's the case, if people are nationalizing and not indexing, how does that play out? Because he's saying if you're not indexed,
Yes.
then when the banking system is revamped, you will be out in the wind.
Well, remember what David P was saying about reading, writing, comprehension,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if they're presenting the word indexing, we're to comprehend the definition of what they mean by indexing. Because we're people now where we're studying and we're increasing in knowledge. We are knowing the importance of the treaty, the Constitution, right? We didn't know too much about our rights. We kind of knew we had some sort of rights, but when we started looking into our rights, it empowers us about what the benefits of knowing our rights. And if somebody's bringing forth an indexing, it should align harmoniously with the treaty, the constitution, and our rights when you hear that term indexing. So reading and writing comprehension is important so that when it's presented to us, we can move accordingly to know that the driver's license is not what we want to identify us. We want to be identified in an indigenous, ancient identity in accordance to our ancestors that had a nation. And
right. And I agree
yeah,
with you, but I still, I'm trying to see what does the indexing, nationalizing, how does that, because he's saying, once again, I'm gonna repeat, he's saying if you're not indexed, and then when the new banking system is booted up, if you're not indexed, then, you're shit out of, pardon my French. But so if you're just nationalized and not indexed, how do we need to be indexed? Based on what he's saying, it sounds like it. But if we're nationalized and not indexed, how will we get into the new banking system?
well, we nationalize because we know our true identity as us being Moors.
Mm-hmm.
Moors, the Moors have a treaty with the Europeans to be here, which established the Constitution for the United States of North America. That Constitution is a powerful constructural documentation. So, which speaks about our the power in the three levels of government: legislation, the executive, and the judicial. And it's got amendments that protects our rights and bounds the judges and speaks about how the courts should function in regards to states. So if an indexing is coming forth and a banking system is coming, it's got to be in line with the Constitution. It has to be aligned, and if it's not aligned, it's contradicting and possibly in violation. So whatever system is coming in, it still has to align with the Constitution. In the Constitution, it speaks about the treaties, which is a treaty of peace and friendship, and that brings us, the Moors, into that strong Constitution.
Okay, and I got that part, and I can agree with you. However, he's saying that he's got the support of 198 nations behind him with this indexing thing. So, do we have the 198 nations behind us with with what we're doing? Or are we gonna get left behind in the banking system?
Remember in the video, it talks about the unions, how they unionized, and how they came onto America as companies, and then those companies established into the 13 colonies, which are still companies, corporations that expanded. So these corporations, they look like nations, but they're corporations.
Okay.
And the video title is Know Who is Who and What is What. Gotcha. So we're to know them being people that unionized to come onto America as companies, and they built their companies, expanded their companies into colonies, into plantations, into companies, into corporations, into something that looks like a nation, but it's not a nation, just a corporation. And perfect example is the driver's license. that looks like something that it should be, but it's not. It's a color of law, looks like law, but it's not. Whereas the travel card is a presentment of our indigenous identity, our ancient identity, our rights, our willpower, our people coming together collectively. It has self-determination in that card. It's got nationality. It's even got what do you call it? Article 1 about enjoyment, right? All the articles of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. And 45 says nothing in this declaration should be diminished or extinguished. That ties into the card, that your presentment of the card is your willpower of your ancient identity. And upon presentment, they should not in any area try to diminish it or extinguish it, because that's part of your rights. Your right is in your presentment, and not to be identified as the travel, as the driver's license or any other any other entity to diminish your identity. And that is an area of an exhibit, that driver's license exhibit of what they're trying to do, which is it possibly treason? Is it a breach of the treaty? A violation of your rights, violation of particular amendments of the Constitution? And we just keep going, right? So the title of the video, it says, know who is who. It's talking about two sets of people, them and us. We're to know who we are. We're to know who they are. And it says what is what and what is what. We're talking about the treaty, the Constitution. We're talking about the rights or rights. We're supposed to know these key elements. So indexing is something that we would want to look into and ask questions, do an audit, ask questions and let them answer. Let them answer. You would ask me questions and I would have to answer appropriately, accordingly. Ask them questions. And if they're not answering, it's a huge problem. And maybe we just need to just lean them. With the facts and keep moving with the facts. Keep moving with the facts. What are the facts? They're not the Americans, and the definition of American speaks about the copper-colored people. Okay. Okay. Hey, any other comments? I think some of us who have commented may have taken on their hands. We have Kev. Kev, if you can unmute yourself.
Regents Noble and Matriarchs. In reference to what you were saying a second ago, what the matriarch was saying is this I would say individual, for lack of a better term right now, is presenting a different system aside from what the Moors are providing, right? Yes. Now, I've been down that road. I know the history of the Moors in reference to how all of this started and all that. Don't really want to get into it because everybody knows. Most persons know. However, right, just to play devil's advocate.
Yes.
looking at the system right now, I understand where the matriarch is coming from, because we're saying that we are Moors. Yes, we own the land, or titles to the land. However, what is the one thing that we are missing that they have that we don't have?
What's that?
And they're reaping havoc with it, and that's their armies, their corporate bodies all over the world, assassinating people, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So now, looking at that, where is our army? if that can be shown, because a lot of people would go back and say, oh, the what do you call it now? The United Nations is on our side, and we have this, we have that when it comes to United Nations.
Yes.
But if you look at it, the United Nations is like the boogeyman in the dark, playing both sides. Literally playing both sides. So as of right now, the way I see it, not that I'm hitting anyone, this is just my opinion. Just my opinion. I repeat again, just my opinion. Okay? The way I see it right now is back in those years when the Moors did what they had to do, I would say to survive by passing the system on to them, right? Right now, I'm thinking the Moors are seeing that the system is weak. So it's either they build their empire or they continuously stay in their, I would call it the hell that is happening around the world. So at the end of the day, the Constitution, just to wrap it up quickly, the Constitution that is put out there, and it has many things in it that says it cannot be infringed upon and all of those things. However, they're already doing it. Nothing is stopping them. Even when we put liens on them and take them to courts and all of these things, they're still doing it. Because what? They have an agenda, and their agenda is just to wipe it out. Because guess what? They know that their time is short. So at the end of the day, they're not going to leave anything. Everything that they can take, they will take. Everything they can destroy, they will destroy. Because
point interest though. Hold on a second. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have to be careful with our words. That you're putting it out there that they will, and we have to
I understand.
rephrase how we want to say that, because it's just recently now we're kind of realizing who we are, right? Yeah. And we need more of us to realize truly who we are.
Okay.
Right? And this time is just probably 5 years, 2 years, 3 years, even though you had people like Taj, who's been at it from 1980 or so, and you had others in the 90s, 2000s. But most of us is just been gravitating to this Moorish movement for the past 5 years, 7, 8 years. That's not long, right? Correct. And we have to now exercise the law on these people, because the title is saying know who is who, talking to us and them. We don't know who we are, and we
points of interest there. Okay, so we don't know who we are, and we're enforcing that right now. At a weak point, I call the system the beast. That's what I call it, right? We're literally enforcing ourselves, enforcing out the right laws now, right? However, the question is, where does the power lie? That's the question, right? We're saying that we want to wake up everybody. People want to wake up. You got to tell everybody. But yet still, Moors is, like, in my opinion, Moors is still dragging their feet. They're like literally dragging their feet. It's like they have like 10 bodies dragging. That's how I see it. And the reason why I can say that is because I've been in other groups. I'm not saying anything to bash any groups, just saying in general. I've been in other groups, and the progress that I have seen, when not in reference like comparing this group or anything, I'm just saying, and the progress that I've seen in many other different methods of getting out of the system These people, like, they're moving. They're literally moving, and we're behind it like, hey, wait up. You know, but I could just keep hope and just say, hey, one day we'll make it, I guess. That's just the devil's advocate side, I could just say. But I have a positive outlook on it, but I'm just playing devil advocate so that it can be expanded upon.
Yes.
I digress.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, and wanting us to speed up and be at the levels that other groups are. And we can do that. We need to set our goals and move forward, knowing that we can achieve everything that we put our minds to in the law, in our rights, in accordance to the treaty. Thank you, Kev. Is that Nadia? Is that Nadia? Nadia, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Grand Rising. Just taking up the point with the driving license and administrative process. I wrote to DVLA and I took my car out of the system. So they chased me for a while. They sent the bailiffs in, and I did the administrative process with the bailiffs, telling them they're not allowed to come on my property, trespass. I sent them a bill, 150,000. If they come to my house, they'll be charged. So they've stepped down. I've done the same with some of the penalty notices that I've received over the year. And I've charged them 150,000 if they come to the premises, and that has stopped them. There's a process that we have to stick to, and it is long-winded. So I'm working through that process, and I'm achieving what's required for us to erudite and to take ourselves out of the system. So I think we do need to be patient. It is new, and I think, yes, everybody's working at a different pace. And I have to say it is maybe a bit frightening because it's something new. All your life you've been used to being indoctrinated into thinking that's how you should live. So I've been taken to court. My car's been clamped, and I've dealt with it all. And I think that we've just got to persevere. And I think that's where it's very challenging if you've never, ever done that before. So, I believe in what I'm doing. I'm a Moor. I am nationalized, and I'm living that lifestyle. And I don't intend to be put off by them ignoring, all of my letters. Thank God I know a bit about law, so therefore I've used my knowledge, their law, and I've combined that with common law, and I've combined that with what I know and learned through studying on this platform. And I'm using everything. So currently I'm fighting with my mortgage. I've dealt with my gas, my electricity. I've dealt with TV license, sent a letter to them, told them I'm not paying it anymore, and told them that there's an implied law that it's a service that I don't want. And they've come back and said, you don't have to pay anymore. So we've just got to persevere and just keep working the system, keep rebutting. They're going to go to whatever lengths to stop us. And I think that what's happening is that people are getting disheartened because the administrative process, I've got folders that are massive with all the letters and documents that I've been sending to them. And obviously, responding back to their rebuttals. And we've just got to keep the faith in what we're doing, and we will be successful. And, you know, I want to be able to share my experience, but at the moment I've got to walk it, and then I can talk it. So the things that I've done so far, that progress, I'm really happy. I have stopped paying all of my bills where they have falsely deceived us in you know, paying this money. I've stopped them all, every single one of them. So your gas, electricity, your council tax, Thames Water, I'm not paying them. I refuse. And if they send bailiffs, I do cease and desist letters saying that you weren't the holder in due course, debt is satisfied, and I add a trespass letter on it, stating that if you come to my house, I'll charge you 200,000. And that has definitely stopped those bailiffs. A lot of them have given it back to, you know, the borough councils. And so we've just got to keep the momentum going, and just every letter that comes, feed it back to them lawfully. And when you do that, there's nothing they can do and say. So, you know, I think that we've got to take that courage. Believe me, it's not easy, but that courage to do something that you've never done. You haven't, you accepted what they were doing to you. You know, when I speak to friends and family, I said, oh, no, you still got to pay gas and electricity. No, you don't. No, you don't. You've already paid it. If you pay income tax, then you've paid for your gas, electricity. And I think once you understand that concept, you'll understand why you no longer pay for those bills, because you've paid for it already. You're paying for it twice. The corporation has stepped in and they've monetized those things that we shouldn't be paying for. And so you just need to break that contract with them. And that's what it's about, breaking that contract. We keep contracting with them. I went to a meeting. When I attended that meeting, there was over 100 white people there, and there was about 4 Indigenous people, of which 2 was mixed race. And they were advising everybody of that race how to discharge all of those debts. So we do know that this is a movement that's not just happening for, you know, the Moors, that the Moors should be doing this, but all the other races are doing the same thing. And we just need to, that's why they're putting up the gas and electricity by 54, 60%, because they know that movement, that people have come out of the system. I'm now living in the private for my gas and electricity. And, you know, this is what we've got to do. We need to ensure that we persist and ensure that we communicate with them lawfully, peacefully. And that's what I've been doing. And it's worked on the majority. I'm still work in progress on about 3 of them. But out of my 7 bills, I've only got 3 left for me to achieve. So I want to just make sure that people have faith, just build that confidence. As you acquire more knowledge, that's what gives you the confidence. And as you start writing more of the affidavits and providing them with lawful information, there's absolutely nothing they can do. I've been sending things to the court saying that this is a default judgment. You're not in the jurisdiction. I've done quo warrantos on judges. I've leaned every judge in the UK because they switched the judge on me. So I thought, well, you're not going to get away with that. I'm leaning all of you. So, you know, they're going to play every trick possible. And I just need everybody to have that faith. And when we continue this movement, we will win. We will win. I yield.
Thank you, Nadia. Well said. Build confidence in our nobles and matriarchs. We have to have a strong determination, strong courage before us. We're going to face a lot, but through increasing in our reading, writing, we can get to that level of establishing strong affidavits of truth, not just for our identity, but for the particular matter that we're in, and serve it to them in terms of presenting the truth, and let them violate the truth. Okay, any other comments? Preservation, for us to persevere in the endurance of what's before us is what's going to make a difference. We can't give up. We can't, when something new comes along, we want to deviate from who we are, the Constitution. So let's keep it going. Let's move strong in determination. I see Janet. Janet, you have the floor. Second. Yeah, go ahead, Janet. Go ahead. You have the floor, Janet. Good day, Janet. You have the floor. Good day, Janet. Janet.
Staying on my phone.
Janet, you have the floor.
Oh,
Okay.
you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Sorry about that. At first, I couldn't get to speak. I think I was muted. Um, okay, so what I was gonna say, I commend the last matriarch that spoke, and everything you say, I commend you for doing that. I just want to have one question to ask. So you did all of this. Are you still receiving service for any of them? As I started listening when you're already in the middle of the conversation. So just want to know that. And before you answer, I wanted to say something regarding our ancient identity. Like, I believe that our name that we now using, which we have the extension of the L or the Bay or the Ali, all that. I believe that we're still under their what you want to call it, force energy, because we shouldn't be using our slave master's name. I think we should have a different name along, with the extension, but having to use the name that their slave master gave them is still, to me, just keeping us down, and they don't even recognize that they still think we're under their corporation. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I feel about that. So if anybody else have anything to say about that, I'm here to hear. Thank you. I yield.
Yeah, Janet, you have the ability to amend your name, your appellation, to any appellation identity you desire. It's your choice, right? In accordance to your autonomous rights, your self-determination. Islam, I self-law master. You have that right for you to make that declaration, proclamation. Have it witnessed, notarized, sealed. That's your right. Remember, the video speaks about them being companies coming here, and they're looking like law, but they're not law. And we're to persevere, just like what Nadia said. We can't. We don't want to just the first obstruction comes our way, we're yielding to it, but it's a we have to endure to the end. And while we're enduring, we are studying, building our knowledge. We're reading, we're writing, we're comprehending, processing, and our who we are will be a better, more American than who we were yesterday. That's what's happening. We are building on the area of that we want to be in. This is the area that we want to start the building, and we're doing it. We're actually doing the building that we need to be building in our indigenous identity. We are the landlords to this land. We got the land titles. It's us. Think about it. It's us that have the land titles to this land. Everything is on this land, on our land. Everything comes from the land. They're using our resources. So we're to now comprehend that through reading, writing, from an intermediate level, from a basic level, intermediate to advanced level. And no matter where we are, it doesn't matter where we are. What matters is that we're starting, and we're working with each other. We're collectively uniting, and we're building together. So as you can see, that was a good testimony from Nadia. Good presentation from David P. Good acknowledgement from Kev. Good spoken word from Abina and yourself. It's actually working. We're developing together. So I yield the floor. I will unmute Papa Kwesi. Second, give me 1 second. And you are unmuted. You have the floor, Papa Kwesi Maruma. You have the floor. Papa Kwesi, you have the floor. Papa Kwesi, you have the floor. Papa Kwesi, you there? Okay. Okay. Keep it going. Any other nationals, nobles, matriarch? Okay. Okay. All right. So any more questions on the video? on the Stamp Act of 1765. Europeans came on our land. They came on ships. They became a union known as the United States of America. They started as the New England, established into the 13 colonies. They can't make law. They really can't make law. Law was established in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1786-87, the United States Constitution. Okay. Okay. Somebody's got a point of interest in the chat. Nadia, you have a point of interest? Okay, 1 second. Let me unmute you. Nadia, you have the floor.
Grand Rising again. Right, I just want to answer the lady that, the matriarch that was before. No, there's no cut-offs, because what you're doing is taking out their property, their gas meter and electricity meter, and you're putting your own in, which now belongs to you. You cancel that contract with them by informing them that you're switching. And once you've done that and given them the last reading and you have got rid of that last bill, you're now in the private. It's as straightforward as that. I think I've been private now for, I think it's about 3 months now, where right now I've got my heating on because I feel it's a little bit chilly. And normally we would have said, nah, you know, another 50%, 4% on top of the bill. You would have said, let me put a throw on my legs. But, you know, I'm using everything as normal, put the heating on when I want, doing everything that I normally do and did before I moved from public to private. So those are really quite straightforward. You're purchasing your own equipment and you're replacing their equipment. And what really pushed me to do that, because I had smart meters installed in my house some years back, and I hadn't realized the power of the smart meter. So if you do have smart meter, they have got remote control to be able to switch you from a tariff to pay as you go. And they did that to me. They cut me off. And so I had no gas, no electricity because they used that. And so that escalated me quickly, removing their meter and putting my own in so that I would never be cut again. So, you know, it's safe to do as long as you have a qualified engineer. And that's something that I did. This applies to anybody that's on meter. I've done, lots of my friends have been done. They've all followed suit. So if you're punching, you're just removing their punch meter and paying them back whatever is due. Some of my friends have got credit back because they've been overpaying. So, you know, it is a safe, that's one of the easiest ones to do without too much interference. Whereas with the council tax, the mortgage and Thames Water, they're resisting, they're rebutting. The really hard one is the mortgage because they're threatening to repossess. So I've had to take lots of steps to protect them not doing that to me. I'm not out of the waters yet. but I'm using everything that I know. I'm studying hard to rebut what they're trying to do. So that's the hardest one. The council tax, I've just stopped and told them I'm more, I ain't paying no money, and that's the end of it. So, they sent in the bailiffs, and I sent them a bill telling them, pay me 200,000 and I'll pay you whatever the council tax is, and that's end that with the bailiffs. But they're sending me emails here and there saying, under the Finance Act of 1992, pay this bill, and I've ignored it. So, so smart meter, do not underestimate smart meters. Some of them are old and they don't have that remote control, but the new ones, and that's why they want everybody on smart meters, new ones, they can control your gas remotely because their meters have something in it that allows them to do that. But once you take that out, you're back onto the national grid, and the national grid, they're not allowed to cut you. It's law. They're not allowed to do it. And you can phone them up and they'll tell you, oh, I haven't got anybody to pay the bill. They says, well, you don't pay us, nothing to do with us. As long as you're getting gas and electricity, they're not bothered. So I'm just giving you an overview on that. And then the lady talked about the name. I researched my name. My name's Mark. That's my father's name. And when I researched it, the slave ships that went to Dominica, that's where my family's from, it came from the Gambia. So my father's name is Gambian, and it's not a slave name, it's not a plantation name. And we've got to be really careful and not dismiss our names, because Mark goes back to the biblical time, and we are the original people, and the Bible really is talking about our being. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, disciples, what they're indigenous. So therefore, I kept my name because I was able to do that research and prove that it is an African name, although it doesn't. They've led us to believe that. And the other thing that I always say is that if I wanted to steal land from you, what would be the best way? The best way would be to steal your name. So I would steal your name, and in that way, I would be you, and therefore your land would be mine. So let's not think that every name that's been allocated to us doesn't belong to us. And if you go back in some of the history, you've got Nefertiti, you've got Nova, and they were already here, in the UK. So we need to try not to think that the names are not ours. Do some research, but the majority of the names still belong to us. If it's come from the biblical time, it's ours and not theirs. And, even some of the plantation, as I said, in order for them to steal our land, they had to take our name as well, which is why they swapped around and said, we're black and they're white when we are white, because we're the superior sovereign. So I yield there. I hope that's helped you all to have a better understanding of the journey that I've been on. Okay.
Thank you, Nadia. Okay, I think we've come to the end of the class. Just before we leave, does anybody have any final comments before we head out? Any final comments? Okay, Kev? You have a final comment? Okay. You're unmuted. Kev.
Unmute. All right, fantastic. All right, so I just wanted to refer to what the matriarch said prior to the one who spoke a second ago. The names that we are provided, well, the names that our parents give us, those names are registered as corporations. However, there's many ways of getting around not being attached to that name. For example, we've acquired our appellation. So now that you've acquired your appellation, you should put it in writing that you are now the registered agent of that name, controlling that name. So for example, if your name was John Doe in the system, you know, all capitalized and stuff, and you change your you get an appellation. Is it me? I think we have a hot mic. Not too sure.
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So in terms of using the appellation, you use the appellation to control your system name. For example, John Doe is controlled by your appellation. So when you sign, for example, let's say you want to function in the system. The system is a maritime system, right? So when you're going to sign, let's say you're going to get a car and you're going to sign for that car, instead of signing it just with your, as they say in the system, your signature, what do? You sign it as the registered agent. You are the agent acting on behalf of that name. So now you're taking control over that corporation. So there's many ways of getting around feeling as if you're a slave to that name. And as the previous matriarch said, it's not everyone who actually has a slave name. You really have to do your deep diving to figure out if you really had that slave name. And if you didn't, and you have some sort of royalty in your bloodline, and you can get to claim the things on that bloodline, then that's a plus right there. So I just want to digress with that. Hopefully that helps.
That's correct. Kev, that is true in terms of your appellation controlling your straw name. You wouldn't be giving it up. You're just controlling it. You have the right to control what was given to you at birth. And that's done through your claim of rights, your claim, your proclamation declaration. Okay, and we have Abina. We still have Abina. Let me unmute you. Abina. You're muted, Abina.
Thank you. I love that information that Matriarch Nadia shared. Now that's like giving me thoughts, because I definitely would like to replace, because I remember in 2013, I remember exactly when they put the so-called smart meter in my house, and I've never really liked having it, and I've thought of trying to get them to come back and replace it, but I have not really taken the action to. But based on what she has shared, I definitely will be moving on that as soon as possible. Especially, because actually it emits more radiation and will cause illness. As opposed to the old meter, and as far as the name goes, I agree with the noble that spoke. We shouldn't be throwing these names away, because I recall Noble Cameron saying that that they didn't really have they were former cave dwellers, for one. And so they didn't really have a history of having last names. They took our names, they did. And based on, I recall Noble Cameron saying that. And so they have assumed, just like they've assumed our identity, calling themselves white, they have assumed identity of claiming that this is their land, so why wouldn't they assume taking our names, and claiming that it's theirs? But one other thing I wanted to add, because I remember Nova Camarella had mentioned this, and that's why I think it's kind of sticking with me right now. Because it was probably like last year when, because the first time I heard about Dr. Henderson was from Brother Cameron, and he had mentioned that I think Henderson had some association with the Moors, and I think it was at some point with that association, Brother Cameron said that he had discovered that he had lineage to King Henry. And so, one thing led to the next. And so basically, with him being the ad hoc judge over the World Court, I think he has a lot of weight to determine certain things. So that's where my concern is. With, as far as the indexing thing goes. So that's basically it.
Yeah, so you might want to correspond with Dr. Henderson and his assistant.
I mean, I've done that for me personally, but I think some people may have questions on it, because I've done my indexing paper and everything, but, as far as we talking about the banking system, that's major. I don't know if you don't think it's major, but I think the banking system is major. Will I be a part of the new banking system or not? I have a couple of silvers, but that's still, I don't know how far that's going to get me.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Abina. Well,
I yield the floor.
We have Janet. Janet, let me unmute you. You have the floor, Janet. You have the floor, Janet. Yeah.
Hi, Noble Morris. Thank you. Okay, regarding the name, based on my research that I've done, and I know many people have done research on the Bible. Some people just want to follow the Bible and follow everything else with the Bible has to do with Christianity and whatever. But I read my information, got information from scholars, and we never had English name. Our melanated people, we didn't have English name. English name was given to us after. During the slavery, it was given to us. If you remember the movie with Kunta Kinte, how they wanted to him to call himself Toby. They chopped off his toes because he refused to get an English name, right? And it's when they chopped his toes off, he accepted Toby. So we never had an English name. And the English name that's in the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're all fictional characters. They don't have nothing to do with that. Those are what the Europeans made up their story for us. And that same Bible with all those characters are what they're using to oppress us and to suppress us and keep us down. So me, I know that I could change my name, but at the time, before I did change, nationalize myself, I wanted to do my ancestry where I can find my real name that I had before, right? I know my mom gave me my name, my English name, but that's what all they knew then. They didn't know anything better because yes, and I wholeheartedly believe that it's all the English name is slave master's name that was given to them. So I know now that I can change it after the fact, and that is what I'm going to be doing. So I don't believe these names, with these English names that they came after England, is all after, came after. We had our own name. I yield.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you. We have David P. 1 second, David.
Right. I just wanted to make two hopefully quick comments. As it relate to the heiress who was talking about the names or the appellations and so on. On one hand, I do agree with her, and at least as it relates to me, I could say that doing a complete correction. Because at least what I did is I thoroughly researched what the meaning of all of my names, all of the names, my natural name that my mother gave me when I came here, in terms of what were the individual names down to the surname that it was, or cognomen that was added here. But obviously I can't get rid of that because that's my estate and the corporation by which I need to do business commercially here. Well, at this point, at this particular time and space. But what I then did is I actually did the research, and I said I would look up what were the equivalents in an alternate language, because I recall there was history was dealing with the Maroons and so on, and there was a lady out of Jamaica. If I were just looking for the bookmark, but I can't find it right now, where when she was doing research into the Arawaks and the Tainos and so on, because she was Muslim, as in Muslim, and she could speak Arabic, she realized though that the language used by the Tainos and the Arawaks had a lot in common with Arabic, and that was why she was actually able to read and get a gist of a lot of what they were talking about in some of their writings and so on, because it's almost like a dialect of Arabic. Just like how you would have like Creole is a dialect of French and African and so on. Now African connotatively, because over there is East Mexican. So it is really a choice on behalf of the person. And like I said, you can do multiple, what people need to realize is that you can do multiple name corrections. So if you were, as you say, John Doe Bay, say John Matthias Doe, and you did a correction, you call yourself John Doe Bay. And then you did further research into your John and Matthias and Doe, and you found that you were related to maybe some king over in the Alkebulan, or you were related to somebody in the Iberian Peninsula, or someone in Northwest Mexico. You could then change, or should I say correct your name again, your appellation again. The difference obviously is that you're going to have to send your your documents to all three levels of government plus everybody else that you sent it to before, to let them know that your new appellation or your correct appellation is whatever this is. So you don't have to necessarily be hard and fast about it, because your spirit might tell you, well, John Doe L makes the most sense now based on your overstanding and your understanding. But down the road, maybe 3 months, maybe a year down the road, you might realize, oh, well, I feel more like a Tariq or Abdullah or I don't know. Ras Mariah is taken, but you don't understand. You might feel more like that, right? And you can correct your appellation, but just make sure that you notify all the three levels of government plus everybody else that you might have been in some kind of administrative or court action type operation that you would have been in, and obviously correct all of the other things that you've done so far. So I think maybe that might be a little bit trying about doing over that thing and making the corrections throughout the system on that level, but you really should study yourself. I think what Noble Drew Ali said, study, but after you finish studying everything that you study and you ask, what else should I study? And it says, study yourself. So if by studying yourself, by doing your astrological chart, by doing your numerology, by doing all of those other things, you may find out things about yourself where you have a greater understanding of yourself, and know that you have a greater understanding yourself and your purpose for being here, like your destiny if you're doing it in Chaldean numerology, or your life path if you're doing it from a Pythagorean numerology, which is Western numerology. You might find that the path that you're on, the current name that you have doesn't suit you anymore, right? You're going to still retain the name because it's the name of the corporation called your estate, called your straw man. And you're going to take control of that, because if you're going to run a corporation, you should at least be the director of it, right? You can't have other people sit down in the driver's seat and drive your estate for you. So you take control of that, and you have your own separate appellation. And that may or may not be more in line with your life purpose and what you're here for, right? But that really would require you to do proper study of yourself. And to start that process, I would suggest people looking into doing their numerology for their name, whether that be on the Pythagorean, Western style, or the Chaldean, Persian perspective, Eastern, and then obviously do your guess. I think there were a number of different nobles who were here who were into astrology, who could help you with your chart, or there's at the end of the site, which I'll post later, where you can get your astrological natal chart done, and then there are websites that will help you study it, and then you find out more about yourself, find out about the planets and the houses and that kind of thing. Because we are also the children of the zodiac, and one of the constitutions that we have to abide by is the zodiac constitution. So that would then tell you that you have to know about the zodiac. So just studying yourself is also studying law, and that is also natural and divine law. So that's another law that you need to be aware of in order to adhere to be yourself. Right? It's not just about the commercial side and so on. That was one. The last point, and I can make this quick, as it relates to the new banking system, any system that they create, since they're all corporations, is going to be de facto, right? According to, Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, they can't issue bills of exchange. And when you issue money money or notes or whatever it is, or their commercial paper is a bill of exchange, right? And they're supposed to do that. And we have to enforce the Constitution to stop them from doing that by not participating in their banking system, right? And a bank is a court. And we know basically that all of their courts are equity courts, and they're all banks. They're in the business of creating bonds. So if you're looking to put yourself under their jurisdiction after all of this, then I mean that's entirely up to you. Every person here, every noble here is a sovereign, and I can make suggestions. I can't tell you what to do. You have to make that choice up for yourself, because in the age of Aquarius, we have to be self-governing. There's no government. You're the government. So you have to, for once in your life, you're going to have to manage your own affairs. So whatever it is that they're doing, and this would be good to stay away from it. But if you have to participate in any way, you know how to discharge that debt, you know how to do the administrative process, know how to lien them, and all of these kinds of things, so that they behave as honorably with you as you can. Because if you don't enforce your rights and exercise your rights, you have none. And Benjamin Franklin, aka Benjamin Banneker, aka Big Ben, said that, right? So the only way you can have your rights is to exercise them. And to exercise them, you got to enforce the Constitution and the treaties, all of them, and hold their feet to the fire. It's not easy, as Matriarch Nadia indicated, but one day at a time, one step at a time, eventually. And I would recommend that anybody who's looking to get into this, getting the idea that, this is something that you're going to be doing for a while, because you have to clean up your area, your life, buy a proper printer, buy stationery, get your legal size paper, get all of your inks, get all your red ink pens, your blue ink pens, your black ink pens, your purple ink pens, your markers and so on, and your staples and all of that, and get into that frame of mind that this is not a hobby, right? And you do the work, and eventually they'll leave you alone and stuff like that. But what do you have to lose? What? I mean, really, your life, right? And at some point in time, they can want to kick down your door, and you want to try and avoid that where possible. Anyway, that was really just what I wanted to comment on. I yield the floor.
Thank you, David P. That enlightened comment. We have Papa Kwesi. 1 second. Papa Kwesi, you're the last one.
I now can be heard. Yeah, there was a problem with my microphone. Greetings, one and all. What I wanted to clarify, I did put in the group, is language is key and is important how we speak. And the same way these people run with propaganda. So when the sister was speaking, and actually a lot of us do it, we keep referring to them as slave masters. I know we've dealt with in class what slavery really means to the Slavs, and that's separate. But the master part, we are then kind of acknowledging and glorifying them. To me, the label they should have is slave criminals. So, and as someone was talking earlier, we should be careful of words and what we put out there is important. If we all started to speak like that, then it's like we'll move forward, and then they will be known for what they are. But now we're to call them master like it was a good thing. So slave criminal should be the terminology. And as of now, going forward, that's how we should refer to them, because their whole system is being run on deceit. And when we're speaking, it's important that we call out the names. There was other things that were said, but to me, the main one that gets me, we shouldn't be acknowledging them as slave masters, as slave criminals. And when we start to speak like that, this will impress on the minds of who they are, and even those who are not as conscious. Because remember, we are the awakened ones. So when we're speaking, we should be teaching. So that's what I wanted to put out there on the floor. And in terms of how we go about doing stuff, it's not just, I think someone was speaking and said, we hope or have faith that we're successful. No, our works and our deeds determine the results that we achieve. So we have to put the work in, and there's going to be challenges and there's going to be hurdles, but no one will give you freedom in your hands, like Nelson Mandela said. So we've got to actually take this, and also our way of thinking and speaking. If we acknowledge them as criminals and we as the noble and honorable ones, putting them to task, I think we'll move a lot further with what we're doing. And so it all starts with the mind and what we believe, what we think, what we project with our minds. If we know we're the masters of the universe, then let's conduct ourselves as such. So we can never have them as slave masters. They were always slave criminals. I yield. That was the point of interest I wanted to clarify.
Well said, Papa Crazy. We're the masters of the universe, and enough is enough with the slave criminals.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, so that's agreed upon. So grand rising to the nobles, matriarchs, the L's and the Bays, as we move with great strength going into this next 5 cycle. And I yield the floor and just have a great rest of the day. Peace and love to everybody.
Peace and love.